All right, welcome everybody to the August 31st, 2017 meeting of Kubernetes SIG service catalog. Aaron Schlesinger, why don't you take it away?
Cool. Thanks, guys. So we're going to proceed as usual today, according to the agenda. Also, as usual, we're going to stick with the speaker queue system. So if you've got something you'd like to say, just type hand in the chat. I'll keep track of the speaker queue with my high-tech speaker queue equipment. With that, we're going to get started with the schedule. The first item of the schedule is about blocking updates to resources while the controller is doing work. That's issue number 1149, and that is you, Paul. So why don't you go ahead and take the floor.
We already talked through this one yesterday. Folks, we're going to read it and come back. I wonder if anybody has questions, comments, concerns, off-topic, tangentially related remarks they want to make, anything. Or do we have consensus?
Where's the hand?
Doug, you put a hand up just around when I did, so why don't you go ahead first?
I'm sorry, I just unmuted by Morgan. Just refresh my memory. Is the only difference between this and yesterday's is you got rid of the field that generates place up or something like that, right?
I changed the comment to reflect what we had talked about in the meeting of you block updates to the spec while the reconciled generation is not equal to the metadata generation.
Oh, right. Okay. Just a comment, not a change to the API. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
I put my hand down. So Morgan, go ahead, take the floor.
Mute button? Okay. It's hard to say. If we're having the status and then we're having like the operation, that's sort of, to me, reads as sort of a state. So maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but if we're establishing sort of another, we're adding status to the thing, or we're doing whatever we're doing with that, then I'd like to see a basic state machine diagram, a little hand-drawn, this is what causes X to move from provision to update to deprovision or whatever. Not that I'm going to block anything on that, but I'd like to visualize what we're doing here and try to, illustrate or at least document our state machines that we're writing here, because that's what we're doing. If this is state, status, whatever.
Okay, I think that's valid. Why don't, and that's something that I know you brought up a couple times before. Are you interested in doing that, in developing that?
If somebody wants to walk me through the, what they think the thing is, yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing you're interested and you'd like to pair with somebody on it, maybe.
Yeah, just to make sure I'm writing down what everybody else is writing down, or what we're thinking of, and just, I want to have something that we can refer back to when we say, is X implementing this? That's a little bit more than text, maybe, or a little bit more specified, specifically. I'm not sure what the word is, but like, I want to be able to have everything checking against one another, kind of a thing. Do a visual check and go, oh yeah, this is where it goes, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, yeah, I feel you. Why don't you make an issue and write up what you think the right format would be, and we can see if someone is interested in pairing up with you on that.
Okie dokie.
All right, cool. I will actually put my hand down again. And Matt, you just put your hand down too?
Yeah.
All right. Doug, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood what was going on here, because I'm not sure I understand how this PR changes state at all, or And don't interpret what I'm saying as a pushback on a state diagram. I think that's usually a good thing in general, so people understand, how things go through the system. I'm just trying to understand how this PR actually brought up the need for a state diagram where we didn't need one before.
I view Morgan's comments as he was expressing that this adds another like he's asked for the state diagram or the pictorial representation of the controller's behavior, and I felt that he was just saying this is another piece of logic that he would like to see in such a thing.
Okay.
Is that accurate,
I can
Morgan?
buy that.
Yeah, that's maybe I'm not looking at it from the right angle right here, but I'll take another read through of it and try to see what I think, and then maybe we can discuss together in the
Okay,
future.
no.
So I'll do that.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
So Morgan, I gave you an action item there to open that issue and begin finding someone to pair with and so on.
AI.
All right.
I wish I could remember that little kid's name from that movie.
All right. Does anybody have more questions, comments, concerns on this proposal?
I have a question. What is the little boy's name?
My daughter cried like crazy at that movie because it was so sad when they left him in the woods. If that's the same movie we're thinking of.
I think that's the movie.
Yes.
Did she cry when everybody's dead at the end?
No, just when she left the little boy in the woods.
Noted.
Sorry, Aaron. We digress.
All right. So we did yesterday decide that we'd like to come to a consensus on this proposal as it's written. So before I start writing that down, this will be the last chance for someone to bring up objections or ask questions before I write our consensus. So last chance, going once. Anybody? All right.
I have no strong feelings either way.
All right. I'm going to give us a consensus here. We are all in agreement. And do we have someone who's going to go forward and implement this?
I think Matt was interested in doing that. Matthew, sorry.
All right. Matt Stabler, I am going to add an AI for you to begin implementing this. All righty. Let's move on to the next point. This was originally posted by Morgan, and it referenced some concerns Doug had, so I put both of you guys down as the presenters. So this is around issue number 1106, and I believe Doug had some concerns with splitting apart plans. So Doug, why don't you start?
Okay. So as I was reviewing Morgan's PR last night, there's a really bad echo. Can people go on mute?
I think that's me, my bad.
Thank you. All right, so when I was reviewing Morgan's PR last night for splitting out plan from service class, I noticed that the plan name, the name on the resource called service plan, right now is just being set to the name that was provided to us from the broker, which is fine. But the broker scopes those names down to the service themselves or itself, meaning you can have two different plans with the same name as long as they're in two separate service classes. Now, because we use the plan name as the Kubernetes resource name, that's obviously not going to work for us because the way we have it set up right now is service plans are actually global. And so the name can't just pick up the name itself from the broker blindly. Hopefully that makes sense. So I know Paul had a brief chat with Morgan about this, and he thought, well, maybe what we should do is prepend the Kubernetes service plan name with the service class name. So it becomes MySQL-free, for example. And obviously that that works in the sense that it makes it hopefully unique, but it doesn't present necessarily the best user experience, because now when the user goes to create their instance, they need to provide the service name as MySQL, but then the plan name has to be MySQL-free as opposed to just free. So it's not a horrible user experience, but it's not the best either. So it just kind of got me wondering whether we should look at other options here. Like, for example, when in the instance, or I guess I should add one other piece of information that makes this more interesting, is inside service instance.plan name, we right now have that plan name as a string. It's not an object reference. Now, in my mind, I understand this is just something I have in my mind. It's not necessarily codified, but because it's just a string and not an object reference, that gives us the opportunity to twiddle it however we want before we actually programmatically turn it into an object reference and go find the plan with that name, which means we could allow the person to still put free in there, but then when we go to look it up, we can prepend it with the service class name. That way, even though the plan itself is called Mongo-free, the user never had to actually write Mongo-free. They always just write free. So that's one option. Now, of course, that's not necessarily great, because then you have a little bit of a disconnect between what the user's kind of referencing and what the thing is actually called. So it's a little bit funky there. So what I want to do is just sort of bring this up and see if anybody has any ideas about whether this is a concern or whether there's other ways to address it. And before I sort of yield my time, I just wanted to mention that there is one other option. I don't know how I feel about it, but another option would be to move some of the data from the plan resource back into the service class, meaning things like the plan name. Now, I'm not saying to duplicate it in both places, just flat out move it, because people shouldn't ever really reference the plan directly by name. I don't think they should ever really have to do that. So if that name is just, for example, the ID of the plan, it's not that big a deal, because it's always going to be accessed programmatically through some traversal mechanism. Users aren't going to have to ever have to type that out themselves. So we could do some funky stuff there if we really wanted to, and that would allow us to keep the names without some weird prepending thing, or, if we wanted to. Anyway, let me just go ahead and stop there and see if any of that was clear, because I kind of ran a little bit.
All right. So Doug, that was a ton.
Yeah.
Can you please put a summary in just as a sibling of the dot that I just wrote, or the bullet point that I just wrote? That would
Yeah,
be
it's actually, I tried to type it earlier before the meeting, so those other bullets kind of summarize it.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right, Paul, you're up. Go ahead.
So yeah, I had another idea about how we might handle this, and I'm not sure if this is better or worse, but I think it's okay. And so here's my idea. I want to see what people think about this. What if, instead of specifying a reference to both service and plan, if you know the coordinate for a plan, you can traverse that to find the service. What if service instance just had the plan name? And we just made a reference to the plan, and when we needed to look up the service, we could look up the service.
All right, Doug, go ahead.
That definitely avoids the problem to some extent. I am a little bit concerned about the usability side of it, because I think for the most part, people will be exposed to the service independent of the plans, right? So for example, you're going to be looking for a database, you're going to look at MySQL, and you're going to say, okay, what are the plans associated with it? Free versus paid kind of a thing. And so I think their mental model is, while they're related, they are two separate entities. So it might get a little bit weird to say, okay, when you go to actually say this what you want, concatenate them together. So that's a little bit of concern from the usability side of things. From the programmatic side of things, I think it gets a little bit dangerous, because whatever concatenation mechanism we have, what if that happens to align directly with some other service dash plan that already exists. So for example, I know it's a horrible example, but let's say there's a MySQL service and its plan is plan dash one, and then someone creates a MySQL dash plan service whose plan is one. When you concatenate all that stuff together, they're going to look the exact same. So we have to somehow kind of block that, right?
I also thought of where else this breaks down is we had a lengthy discussion, lengthy discussion about optional plan names.
Oh yeah.
And the when a service only has one plan. So how about this? One thing that I think we should think about is I do not personally like the I agree with you on the usability issue. It will look a little bit janky on in the YAML to have service name MySQL, plan name MySQL free, but I think it's possible that in the long term, most of the users of this API are going to be using it via UI. Like in the OpenShift console, and Sam, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn as someone that doesn't know anything about UIs, but in the OpenShift console, I think we could hide this from people. And likewise, in any other web UI, we could hide this notion. And then I also expect that, and we've had a lot of interest in this so far in the group, that we'll have porcelain commands to make the experience of making a service instance something that has parity with like CF, where you're like, create service instance blah, and this is my plan name. And in such a porcelain command, I definitely think we could just have only the plan name without the service name concatenated onto it. EOF.
All right, Doug, go ahead.
So in that spirit, though, could we just do what we're, how do I phrase this? So could we just keep the instance.plan name as just the plan name itself without the service name prepended? But then when we go to find the plan as a resource, we do the concatenation.
I mean, it would certainly be possible to do. I don't know of any other API resource that works that way in Kubernetes, though. So I think most people would expect such a field, whether it's called name or whether it's a reference, and you put the name in the references name field, to actually refer to the Kubernetes name.
Yeah, I agree. It is definitely janky. My concern, though, with saying, oh, we'll just fix this up with porcelain from the command line or stuff is, throughout my way too long career, every single time I hear people say that, it's usually a sign that something is way too complicated and needs to get fixed, because that just means your UI has serious problems.
Maybe we should just not allow you to change a plan and give you a random one.
Not allowed to change the plan and give you a random one. I'm not sure what that means.
That was a joke. Not allowed to specify the plan, and you just get a random plan.
Oh, that works. I can go for that.
Perfect. There we go. Consensus.
All right. So I put my hand up here just to say we at Microsoft, we were not going to be able to rely on porcelain. It's kind of the same spirit with what you said, Doug. That's it for me.
So you're not going to have any user interface around this ever.
What was that? Sorry.
When you say you can't rely on porcelain, it sounds to me like you're effectively saying that if we make kubectl extensions, that you wouldn't be able to use them.
Yeah, that's right. It's not that we will not have an interface, but we will probably not be using kubectl extensions. You
will never use kubectl extensions.
Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
I can't say never, but the fact that we're not going to be able to use them most of the time means that I have an interest in making this sane from the Helm chart standpoint and from the Kubernetes manifest standpoint?
Well, I think sane is relative. I personally don't think that if you have to type service name again, I think I've seen worse in my career. It's maybe worth, and unfortunately, SIG architecture was today. It's maybe worth a chat with SIG architecture about is it okay to do this? Because I can't think of any precedent for doing it.
Cool. Yeah, I just put my hand up to respond there. Putting the service in front of the plan is totally fine with us. Yeah, so sane is just to have a way to do this. I probably should have left off sane. To have a way to do this in a manifest instead of relying just on porcelain. So that's it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that you may have misunderstood what I meant. So here's the specific thing I was saying. So like, say you've got MySQL service and you've got free plan, and the thing that's janky about the way that we had to make the Kubernetes names because of how those names are scoped in OSB is we have to call the object for the plan MySQL free. And by porcelain, I meant that we could have like a create service instance kubectl extension that you would say create service instance MySQL-P free, and it writes in MySQL free into the plan name for the instance resource that it makes.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I suspect that is not what you heard when I said that.
That's what I heard when you said it.
Okay.
So we're on the same page. All right, Sam, you're up next. Go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to point out quickly, and I'm not sure how much of a problem this will actually be in practice, but appending the service name to the plan name does not necessarily guarantee uniqueness. Like if the end of a service is the same as the start of another plan, you could potentially have collisions in the name.
Yeah, that's
Alrighty.
true.
Doug, you are up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's something that's similar to what I was saying earlier, and I agree. I think doing the prepending is kind of dangerous. I'm wondering if, in order to trying to figure out how to make forward progress, because I don't think we can resolve this today. So Morgan, right now, you just stick the plan name without prepending anything on the resource, on the plan resource itself, right?
I don't stick anything onto anything else. So
Okay.
where are we?
I want to make sure you're not doing the service name prepending thing, right?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so I guess what I'd like to then propose in order to make forward progress, because I definitely don't want to hold up Morgan's PR since it's going to force him to rebase. What if we just stick with what we do today, which we know is not going to work, which actually is a good thing because that's going to force us to revisit this before beta. And then we'll just open up another issue to resolve how we're going to solve this going forward, whether it's doing prepending, whether it's doing funky name concatenation just under the covers, or we're going to say, screw Microsoft, we're going to do porcelain. Whatever the solution is, we figure that out later in the other issue. So my proposal for making forward progress is to let the current PR go in as is, assuming it goes through the normal review process, and then open up another issue to resolve this.
Okay. Paul, I know you had some comments on forward progress, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm close to agreement with you, Doug, but I know that for one of our brokers, your suggestion will break because we generate default names that are just default for plans in one of our brokers that I know about. So I wonder if we can just, as a temporary measure, because I don't want to block the PR either. I know well the tax associated with rebasing. Here's a terrible idea that will leave everybody equally unhappy, but it will work, is what if we call the plan name the broker name dash service name dash plan name. And it'll be extra bad, and we'll all be really motivated to figure something out. But
as long as it's not more than 63 characters.
Anyone have any objections to that for now? Put your hand up if you do.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, so if we give the service plan resource name some funky name that we all hate, so that we have to fix it for beta, what is the instance.plan name value? Is it that same funky, horrible name, or is it just...
Same funky, horrible name. It's the dumbest thing that could possibly work, and we can figure everything out.
Okay, so at least we're consistent between those two.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I can live with that as long as it's a really, really bad name, yes.
All right, well, hopefully I've delivered on the promise of a terrible name.
And open up another issue to resolve this, yes.
All right, I also am good with that for now. That's it for me. Sam, go ahead.
I was just going to throw out another possibility. I don't know if this is better or worse or ugly, but you could generate, you know, a unique 5-character string at the end of the plan name if you want to guarantee uniqueness, or at least be pretty sure you're going to get something unique. So that's possible as well if broker name, service, plan name gets too long.
Could also use the external ID, because that's going to be unique too. So yeah.
All right, Paul, go ahead.
So Sam, I get where you're coming from, but we have to detect if names changed. So we need something consistent. I think external ID would be also suitably terrible. It passes the terrible name test.
That's our bar. I love it.
That could also be name plus external ID would be still bad enough, but less terrible. Because at least you could see the plan name in there.
Going once?
All right, so I've heard 3 things. I've heard broker dash service name dash plan name. I've heard, I believe it was external ID plus plan name. And then I've also heard name plus external ID, which are almost the same. They're just flipped. So why don't we take a vote first of all between using the external ID somehow and using the broker name somehow. So let's start there. So all 4 using the broker name, just vote like this, plus vote, and start voting now, please.
On which?
Using the broker name. By the way,
what?
I'm not
That doesn't make any sense.
Broker name dash service name dash.
Okay, the whole giant thing. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not, by the way, my vote is not part of this, so we'll start from 1.
Since you're objective, I don't think you get to vote, Aaron.
That's what I just said. We're going to start from 1 if and when someone votes. Going once for broker dash service dash plan. All right. Now, if we get 1 or more votes for the other one, it wins. So we're talking about using the external ID, not necessarily where it goes in the plan names, but just that it's there. So all for using the external ID, please vote now. Okay, 2, Etov, 3.
I think we should wait until all precincts are reporting on this one, Aaron.
Yeah, we're good with external ID. So we're not going to vote on this one. Which one do people want to do? Do you want to do name plus external ID dash whatever? What are the ideas on the floor?
Yeah, I like name first, and I put that in the minutes.
Okay, so plan name plus external ID is what I'm hearing. Is that Any objections to that? Okay. Doug, you said you put it in the notes already?
Yeah, look at the very last
Yeah.
bullet.
All right, I'm going to put a consensus here too. We are going to name plan resources with plan name plus external ID. All righty, and that is the external ID of the service, correct?
No, it's the external ID of the plan.
Ah, that's right, sorry. Okay, awesome. Any final comments, questions, objections to this point here?
Who's going to take the action item to make, well, I think we still have the same Kubernetes names of these things issue that this is kind of associated with, right?
Yeah, that's my AI, and I apologize. I still haven't had a chance to do it yet. But for this particular action item, I think it falls on Morgan since it should be included as part of his PR that's currently open.
Yeah, this is easy enough that I can do that. We have a decision, so.
I'm just going to put that down in 1106. Cool. Alrighty. We're going to move on then to the final scheduled topic. This is issue number 1147. Paul, you're going to talk about reconciliation. Go ahead, take the floor.
So we talked in the face-to-face about having a record in the status of what are the field values, or what are the property values where property is like plan, parameters that you sent that the broker actually knows about. I wrote up a proposal for doing this for instance and binding. And the proposal is that for, well, let's talk about service instance. Excuse me. For service instance, we will add to the status 2 new fields. One is the in progress properties, and it's a record of what properties we're currently performing an action on at the broker. And then the other is external properties, and that'll be a record of what properties the broker knows about for this instance. Of course, names I spent about 5 seconds thinking about. We can change names as we find things that are better. And the reason that we need the in progress one is we might have, even though you can't change the spec while you're doing something to these objects, you might have a scenario where a secret changes out of band, and it changes the parameters that you would send. So let's dig into what these things are really quick. So for a service instance, the type that holds this information is called service instance property state. Again, spend about 2 seconds on the name. It's got the plan name. It's got the parameters, where those are the actual parameters that we sent, with the exception of if we sent a particular parameter sourced from a secret, we're going to put redacted into this blob so that we can see that we sent them, but that the we're not going to show the values because this can't be an escalating resource. And then we have to store a checksum for the blob of parameters that we sent, because when you update an instance, you have to be able to detect whether the user intended the parameters to change, and you should only send the parameters during an update if the user actually wanted them to change. Any questions about this before we go on? And I guess I will add to that when you complete an operation, you update the external properties. I'm sorry, when you start an operation, you set the in progress properties, and when you complete it, you move the external properties to, you move the in-progress properties to the external properties, and you unset the in-progress properties.
All right.
UF.
Cool. All right, Doug, you are up. Go ahead.
I apologize if you already explained this either just now or through the issue itself, but for some reason I keep having trouble remembering it. The in-progress properties one, I'm not sure I understand why we need to keep the list of property names in there, because whether they change or not, you're always going to go back to the secret itself and grab the latest stuff, right?
I would be happy to not have the parameters. Well, I think it is good to show these are the parameters that the broker knows about. I think we had agreement on that, and I'm trying to parse out whether you're asking, do we actually need to show that information, or is there maybe something else that you're asking about?
Well, okay, yeah. So I apologize. I'm not being clear because I don't have it clear yet in my mind. I agree that there is this part of me that wonders whether there really is value in showing the parameter names that the broker has. I'm not sure I see value in that, because the user can't really do a whole lot with it. Where plan name, you can use that later on and say, oh, I want to create another one of these things, so I'm going to use it. But just the key names by themselves don't really help you a whole lot. So I'm not sure I see value in that. That's definitely true. But what I'm trying to understand is, even if we choose to save the property names in the external properties structure, because for some reason we do see value in keeping that, I'm not sure I see the value in keeping it for the in progress. Is it because the list of key names might change between the time we start the operation and we finish the operation, so we need to have some cache to save it in external properties?
Yep.
Okay, I'll try to make that one simple.
Like you start an operation, someone goes and adds a new key to the secret. We want to make sure that we reflect that you only had keys A, B, and C, and not A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't seen any other hands.
I'm willing to let this one percolate for people, and maybe we can talk about it later if people would like.
Yeah, I'd like a little bit more time to think about it, just even though I think it's probably definitely in the right direction. I'd like to understand more about whether we really think that there's value in saving the key names.
By the power vested in me by Kubernetes, I grant you an additional 30 seconds.
Woohoo.
All right. So I heard, Doug, you say you want more time. Paul, you said you're willing to wait and let everyone read the proposal, think over this. I'm going to note that in here and give everyone, kind of all of us, the general action item to go read over stuff and come back. Let's say that we want to come back on Monday, try to reach consensus on this.
On the subject of Monday is Labor Day in the U.S.
Sorry, Tuesday. All righty. Any other comments, questions, objections to the reconciliation topic for properties? Going once? All right. I will copy this item into the agenda, the first piece of the agenda for the next design meeting, which will be on Tuesday. That is September 5th, excuse me. Other than that, we've got an AOB, which I now know what that means. So do we have any other business? Does anyone else have anything they want to share? Any comments, any questions, anything they want to add to the agenda? Going once? All right. Go check out your action items. And besides that, I will see everyone on the internet and then again back here at the next design meeting on September 5th, Tuesday, September 5th. Thanks a lot, everybody.